It's Friday, everyone. EVs are the future. The European Union is banning combustion-powered vehicles starting in 2035, but the excuses and lowering of expectations have begun when it comes to automakers being able to fulfill those obligations. Today, we're going to talk about it, Justice. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. Looking around, it looks like we moved. Did we move?
We moved. It's what time is it? What time is it in your side of the world? 9:45?
Hey, it's 9:45
That
here.
must be
Yeah.
so much nicer than when you usually have to wake up to join me.
Yeah. I didn't have to roll out of bed at 6 o'clock in the morning. I was able
Yeah.
to roll out of bed at 7. That was nice.
Yeah, our goal with this new time slot for why AA Electric's plugged in is that those of you on the West Coast, where 1/3 of American EV buyers live, can hopefully tune in more often because this time is a lot less of a hassle for you. It's 12:45 Eastern, and today's headline topic is EV battery shortages and EV shortages in general, because I have so many people reaching out to me on the YAA community forum. It's a free forum. You should join, or via email, and they're saying, "Hey, I want an EV, but I can't find one." And I'm like, "Yeah, I know." So we're going to talk about what automakers are and are not doing to kind of alleviate that problem. And uh, where better to start it off than with Ford? Justice, you want to kick us off with some Ford news that's not really surprising, having to do with the overall industry adoption of EVs.
Yeah. So we know that Ford had their deadline for the dealers to decide whether they were going to be one of the EV dealers or not,
Hmm.
and have to pay their what $1.2 million. And the deadline was originally Halloween, October 31st, and Ford has now pushed that to December 2nd, which I'm guessing will also get pushed again, as they're trying to give dealers more time to decide. I think they're really trying to give dealers more time to be convinced that they want to go this route and make that kind of investment.
Yep. Now, Ford is giving all dealers two options. They say they can either sign up for Model E Certified Elite, which is a $900,000 initial investment, most of which is going to go towards installing fast chargers at the dealership, one of which has to be available to the public. That's very interesting. Or they can go for Model E Certified, which is just, quote unquote, just $500,000 that would go towards installing one public fast charger. But they're going to be only allowed to sell a, quote, limited number of EVs per year, definitely restricting their allocations. And this is what they've got to decide. But now the deadline has been pushed back to December 2nd. So I'm sure it's still not an easy decision for most, particularly in the parts of America where EV adoption is not accelerating as quickly as it is over there in Pacific time, where I saw the numbers recently. Justice, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's about a third of EV sales in America are in California, right?
Yes, yes, California has the highest adoption rate by far.
And I know Oregon and Washington have some state level EV incentives that I don't have out here in West Virginia. So I'd imagine if you combine those three states along the West Coast, plus Nevada, plus Arizona, Pacific time, you're probably looking at like 45% of America's EV sales. That's fascinating.
I think I believe I said it on the last show with Zach. Part of that is we have the infrastructure,
Yeah.
so that's a big reason for the adoption here. Is it's not that big of a deal to own an EV here. You can just go and charge if you're on a road trip in California, no problem.
Yep. That is true. That is true. Where I live, you definitely have to plan before you go on a road trip. Plan where you're going to stop and charge, how long you need to charge for. I'll be the first to admit that it takes getting used to, but considering that I literally save $150 a month on fuel, by going electric, it's worth any minor hassle that I've encountered. So it's just different. Depends on your lifestyle. Depends on your driving
Yep.
habits, right? But let's get into some more of this news now. We're going to transition over to GM, General Motors, because in the Q3 earnings report just the other day, Mary Barra had to tone down expectations for their electrification strategy. It's not really a surprise, but I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. Got an
You
awesome
mean
article from Inside EVs.
You mean they're not going to take over Tesla by the end of this year?
Oh, we could make that the whole topic of the show, couldn't we, Justice? Yeah, so GM has pushed back their target date for 400,000 EVs. All right, that's how many they want to make. How many does Tesla make per quarter? Like per quarter, what, like 500,000?
Yeah, just under 500,000. Yeah.
No, let's see. Back in February, Mary Barra said that GM plans to deliver some 400,000 EVs in North America only through 2023 as a part of a goal to make 1 million EV sales in the region through 2025. But there is one particular bump in the road that is causing them to push back these deadlines. Now they're saying 400,000 by mid 2024 is their new goal. It's not all bad news because GM has launched a new EV battery facility here in America in Warren, Ohio. The Rust Belt is becoming the electric belt, and they're having a little bit of a hard time getting the new Warren, Ohio EV battery plant up to full production. It's not a surprise. I mean, Elon Musk even warned other automakers that it's a lot easier said than done when it comes to ramping up these types of production facilities. Barra said it is taking longer than expected to hire and train workers at its new production plant, and it's taking a little bit longer for battery pack assembly as well. They've hired about 1,000 workers in Ohio for this EV battery plant, so that's great. But it's taking a bit longer than they expected to get it online. The Chevy Bolt is flying off the shelves like hotcakes. Okay. They recently increased production capacity, at least their targeted production capacity for the Bolt EV and the slightly larger Bolt EV from 40,000 units a year to 70,000 units a year. So they need more batteries for that. But the big news is that the Equinox EV, which is going to be faster charging, longer range, affordable price, that is going to be depending on how quickly GM and its partners, LG Energy Solutions, can produce these new Ultium battery electric platforms. Can they make them in time for the Equinox EV rollout in late 2023? I sure hope so, because honestly, that's the EV I'm looking forward to the most. Not to mention, Justice, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we've got these others coming in the next year. Silverado EV, which I'll pull up a picture of. GMC Sierra EV. Cadillac Lyric, which is fully electric. I love the Lyric. It's one I think that is really underrated on the interwebs. What else is there, Justice? GMC Hummer EV?
Yeah, well, yeah, you got the Hummer with the H2, whatever they're calling the new smaller Hummer coming.
Oh, yeah.
Right
here we've got a... What's that?
That's a Silverado, right?
Yeah, right here we've got a spy pic shared by TFL Truck of the electric Silverado. It's a 2024 model. It's obviously missing some cladding on the side. It's definitely for testing purposes, but really poor attempt at camouflage here, right? But it's obviously an Electrify America station, and the Silverado EV, it's going to need a hell of a lot of batteries because trucks are just not aerodynamic. It's the same thing, it's just the shape. It's physics. You can't change the physics, right? Unless you make it have a more aerodynamic design. So what I'm saying is that you could build probably 2.5 Equinox EVs for every one Silverado EV because you need a lot of batteries to give an electric truck 300 miles of range, not to mention 400 miles of range, which is what GM says the Silverado EV will be capable of. So these battery shortages are going to lead to continued EV shortages for at least the next few years. I lost track of the tally for how much money has been funneled towards new EV battery plants in the past 6 months. Justice, do you remember?
I don't. I lost track of. It's a lot. It's many, many billions of dollars.
I can guarantee that it's north of $15 billion in EV battery plant investments since midsummer. That's in America. These are American battery facilities that have been announced, but it takes at least a year and a half, more like 2 to 3 years, to get them up to production from the moment of construction starting. So yeah, buying an EV might be a lot easier in 2025, but what good does that do today's What good is that for today's EV buyer? I mean,
Yeah, today's EV buyer has to be an enthusiast and really want the EV and really, embrace that lifestyle. In 2025, 2026, sort of going forward from there, it can be more of a general audience sort of thing where more people can get into them once the infrastructure's there, once we have more competition out there, there's more stuff. I know right now, all week on chat on the back on Join YAA, people are asking me for third row EV SUVs. And it's hard to say. I know you mentioned when you were on with Zach and I that the Model Y technically has a third row,
but I said it's
let's
small. It's ridiculous. It's a joke.
It's a jump seat, right? It's like the old Rambler jump seat. They're backwards. Is that how that works? They're
Yeah.
facing backwards out of the hatchback. Yeah.
Well, no, the one that made it into production does not face backwards.
Oh, it doesn't.
No, that was like
insane.
early pictures.
That's even worse.
Yeah, so I'm gonna pull up a picture of that for those of you who are looking for a 3-row EV. Oh man. Okay, I'm trying to find a good picture of it. I'll just share all of this with you guys. It is kind of a joke. Like, to what extent is it a joke? I don't know. Tesla doesn't release numbers on how popular and how well the third row variant sells, but I'd imagine it can't be too much.
No,
take a look at
not
this.
on the Y.
Adults don't really fit. Here, this is the best picture. Look, that's the trunk, you guys. That's the trunk.
Now, why didn't they turn it around? Why isn't it a jump seat?
I'd imagine it's safety because this is not the production variant, but this was before the third row option was released. These people were playing around with how it might work, but that's
because that's when the Model S came out, that was the option, right? When the Model S first came out, they had the backward facing third row.
So this is the production variant. This is what it actually looks like, and all of the reviewers, all of them, say that it is big enough for like under 12 years old. But then again, I'd be worried about safety. I know Tesla has exceptional safety ratings and great crash test ratings, but still, you're sitting at the back of the car, like right up against the trunk. Anyways, I had Scott reach out to me via email and was asking specifically about 3-row EVs. And Scott is looking into getting into an electric vehicle in 2023. But we had to talk about price points and we had to talk about very, very limited options because coming in later in 2023, we might have possibly the VIN Fast VF9. That's a 3-row EV being produced in North Carolina, by the way. But Scott had a very justifiable concern. This is a concern that I have too. With an automaker that you essentially know nothing about, we didn't know anything about VinFast's reliability.
Well, they've been around in Vietnam for quite some time.
But not making EVs.
Not making EVs, but they're not a new car maker.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The VIN Corporation is a massive conglomerate in Vietnam. It's not just cars. They have like VIN University and all kinds of products in Vietnam. But making electric vehicles, that's even something I've worried about with the eGMP platform with my own Ioniq 5 is like, well, this is the first generation of this electric platform that Hyundai and Kia have created. So there's some reliability questions that I have. But what makes that different from stepping into the world of VinFast is that I've got Hyundai dealerships everywhere. And if I need service on the fly, I can take it 10 miles down the road to the Hyundai dealership. VinFast, you'd have to live close to where one of their experience centers are located. So it's a whole different thing.
Which we have several of them already open here in California.
That's more than the number of hydrogen refueling stations in California.
They're back up. I hear they are back up and working.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, third row EVs I know are going to be a big thing. I'm, maybe with Toyota rethinking their plans, we'll see an actual Highlander EV. I think
that would be awesome.
If Toyota just started making their current model lines EVs, I think you'd see huge adoption by a lot of people because there's a brand that people trust.
Yeah, that would be amazing. Toyota, Honda, Nissan, they're going electric, but they're really just taking their time, and that could be a strategy that ends up paying off for them depending on how it goes for the competition, right? And we're talking about it today. We've already seen GM having to push back their expectations because of the lack of supplies, in this case, batteries. Toyota waiting until, I don't know, 2026 to really get into the electric game, that might end up working out for them because we forget about the BZ4X. Justice, do you remember like 2 or 3 months ago, we used to have shows all the time where we talked about the BZ4X from Toyota, but then the recall came, stop sale. I think 200 were delivered. They had to
Yeah.
be bought back by Toyota because of issues. There's a lot of articles out there saying Toyota's just trying to really hope for a EV reset at this point. Do you think that's what we're going to see, where Toyota kind of just tries to press the reset button, remarket the BC4X, and then hurry up and launch like an electric Highlander or electric Tacoma?
Yeah, I mean, I know, insiders are saying that after Tesla's Q3 earnings reports that Toyota's taking another look, and they're seeing the lowered production costs at Tesla, who's able to lower the prices in China to meet those incentives, and because costs have come down. So they're taking a look at that and saying, maybe we need to concentrate in one direction. And so with them rethinking, I think a lot of people are going to be rethinking their strategies. And I really think that dividing your focus is hurting manufacturing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think either you're going to go EV or you're going to stay ICE and for a while longer. But we're going to have different variants of each vehicle thing. It's not sustainable production wise and financially.
Yes, I agree. We've got some trivia attempted in the chat from Learning Fast. I don't know the answer. Justice, I'm going to toss it to you from Learning Fast. Can we name the only manufacturer that doesn't offer a single hybrid or EV right now? Is it Bugatti? But they're not.
Mazda? Was it Mazda?
No, Mazda has the 100
Oh,
mile.
yeah.
But don't buy the Mazda
Sorry.
EV right now, you guys. Wait a few
Sorry,
years.
yeah.
If you love Mazda, cool. Wait a few years because their current offering is pathetic. But no, I don't know. Is it Bugatti?
Is it,
Oh, well, no, because he said hybrid. That's the thing
yeah.
that's really tripping me up
They're
because
throwing it into the hybrid, yeah.
right now, Stellantis, it's the 4th or 5th largest automaker in the world. They don't have a single EV on sale in America. But when you consider hybrids, I don't know. Learning Fast, let us know in the chat. What is the answer? Because that's a tough one since you threw hybrids in there.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with you, Bugatti.
But see, I don't know if Bugatti would just fall under the umbrella of Volkswagen Group, because isn't that who owns Bugatti?
Yeah.
But some of you are wondering who is behind me on my beautiful green screen. This is Alessandro Volta, the one of the inventors, because history gets weird when you get to like 200 years ago. One of the inventors of the battery around the year 1800. Alessandro Volta in Milan, Italy, invented a battery. And I guess that's where the Volta charging network got their name from. You might see those stations at shopping centers, malls, if the mall is still alive. Yeah, movie theaters. That's where they got their name. Pretty cool.
Except for, don't forget the Baghdad battery thousands of years before.
Okay, now Learning Fast is really making me curious. So in the chat saying this company, the mystery company, claimed that their entire lineup would be all electric by 2022. Is this company still in business? I don't know. Well, see, that doesn't count because Infinity is a part of Nissan, but
yeah.
Okay.
I mean, yeah.
Still interesting. Infinity's the answer, you guys. Infinity does not have a single hybrid or EV on sale right now, according to Learning Fast. I trust you. That is interesting.
That is true.
Not really surprising, though.
But, they're part of a larger auto group that does have an awful lot of.
Yeah.
Of
I was thinking more zoomed out than that, but
yeah.
You can't just stick an Infinity badge on a Nissan Leaf with 180 miles of range. You can't. That doesn't work like that.
No, that's fair. Like that's fair.
Oh man! So, what other EV news caught your eye this week, Justice?
Why we got GM also saying that they're going to qualify for 3,750 of the tax credits right away,
Hmm,
but
so
won't
half.
qualify for the full thing for another 2 to 3 years. So I'm
That's a
guessing
long
that
time.
means minerals out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
So I'm
so we're talking
guessing
about the
that's where
new
that's
EV
coming from.
tax credit.
Yeah.
Wow, 2 to 3 years is a long time for the consumer. It's not a long
Yeah.
time when you think about what it takes to bring battery sourcing contracts into play, but for the consumer, we're talking like what, 2026? It's a long time.
Yeah. I mean, some of the, it's, it's as we've said before, perception is kind of this weird thing. We're used to things speeding up right now. 2 to 3 years isn't that long
Hmm.
to, if you're trying to resource, you know, minerals for your batteries that are in North America where there's not very many plants built yet. So I get it. But,
Yeah.
for those of us who are wanting to make that switch quicker, it's, it's a big deal, or it feels like a long time.
Yep.
And then the only other news story I want to point out before
I have
we
a few
go.
too.
Okay. I just want to say the Model Y is now the best selling car in Europe.
Period.
Period.
Like not
Not
just
not best
EVs.
selling EV, best selling vehicle in all of Europe, and catching up in the United States. Just period. So now we have an EV in the best selling class, uh, of all vehicles. For
Oh
those who
yeah.
think the transition isn't coming.
Oh yeah, well, my Ioniq 5 won Motor Trend's SUV of the Year award, but too bad they only sold like 2,000 of them last quarter.
I saw that and it
Um,
was great. I mean, it makes sense. You can't give it to Tesla every single year. Sometimes you got to toss it out to somebody else to make them feel good.
well, I kind of agree with one of the rebuttals that I saw. How can you give SUV of the world award to a vehicle that is basically impossible to buy? Because you can't
Yeah.
just go out and buy an Ioniq 5. Production is so limited. Demand is through the roof, but Hyundai must have screwed up their supply chains at some point. You know, piss somebody off, burn some bridges because they're not able to procure enough batteries. It could be semiconductor chips, but it's most likely batteries because their other inventories are rough. They're stabilizing a bit, but when it comes to Hyundai and Kia EVs, man, they're having a hard time producing them. Even though demand is through the roof, they could be making a killing right now if they could just make the cars.
I think a lot of manufacturers are seeing that, and I think that's also part of why Toyota is rethinking their strategy. Is uh, they can make a killing on EVs if they could just produce them and get the materials fast enough.
Here's a question. Any news on the Volkswagen ID4 tax credit? What we know right now, and Justice, let me know if you know anything in addition to this, is that as long as it is produced in Chattanooga, Tennessee,
Yeah.
which starting now, all ID4s sold in America, uh, they should be built in Chattanooga unless it's a vehicle that somehow has been sitting in the back of the lot and wasn't on sale for the past several months. But you need to check the VIN number, speak to the sales representative, get the VIN number, check the VIN number, see where it was built. Because if it's built in Chattanooga, Tennessee, it will qualify for the tax credit. I cannot confirm if it qualifies for the full $7,500 because I don't know where Volkswagen sources their battery minerals from. Most of us in EV media don't know that information. I would bet that most of the executives at Volkswagen itself don't know that information. You
Yeah.
have to go into literal supply contracts to see where the minerals were sourced from to see if the ID4 is going to qualify for the second half of the EV tax credit. And you just shared with us, Justice, that it sounds like the GM EVs are going to qualify for just half of it. That's because the other half is dependent on where they source their EV battery minerals from. And I guess they're not able to keep that in North America or free trade agreement countries.
Yeah. We're pretty sure most of it's coming from China still right now
Yeah.
because they're the ones who invested in the infrastructure, built it all out.
Yeah. China does not have half of the world's lithium, but China has
Mm-mm.
half of the world's lithium mines. Chile, Australia, even the US and some parts of Canada, there's plenty of lithium. It's not easy to mine and process into lithium carbonate, but it's there. China has, however, been building out that infrastructure, like you said, Justice, for like over a decade. Therefore, if you're trying to get, I guess if you're an automaker signing contracts, which I've heard these contracts are like you sign a contract today for lithium that you want 2 years from now. That's how I've
Yeah.
heard these contracts work. It's not
Yeah.
like you get the lithium in the mail the next day. But that's why it's really, really tough to get domestically sourced lithium or lithium from free trade agreement countries. But I'd imagine the mining industries in Chile, Canada, of course, here in the United States, maybe Mexico, not sure if they have any lithium resources. Those mining industries are going to be on fire in a good way. They're going to be really growing, but hopefully
Yep.
the environmental impacts are thought of and we can do that as responsibly as possible.
Why they have what 20 mines now in Australia that are permitted to go forward. So Australia's like once all this stuff came up and they said, okay, let's go.
Yep. And up in Canada, there is a lithium mine opening up that is going to be 98% powered by hydropower, so powered by the force of water. That is one of the cleanest sources of energy possible. So that's good, right? But then again, there's the ecological impacts that never slip my mind because my master's degree is actually in ecology and environmental science. So I always think about that. But study after study shows that between 30,000 miles and 50,000 miles in, when you're driving an EV, you reach that break-even point when it comes to environmental impacts because you're saving so many emissions compared to a combustion equivalent that from that point onward, say let's be conservative with it. After you drive 50,000 miles in your EV, from that point onward for the life of the vehicle, it is cleaner to drive that EV than it is to drive a combustion equivalent. So that's something that everyone should know. They're not perfect, but if you drive a lot, it's definitely an improvement.
Yeah, they're not perfect, but technology is improving, mining's improving, all this, So over time, they will get better and better. Nothing will ever be perfect, obviously.
Yep. Totally agree. And the headline topic today, battery shortages. I figured I would bring back this news item from earlier this year. Carlos Tavares, Stellantis chief executive, warned a few months ago that by 2025, the entire automotive industry is going to be facing a massive battery shortage. Why? Because demand is through the roof and it takes a while to build a battery production facility. So when Carlos Tavares said this a few months ago, it kind of sent shockwaves through the industry, but not really to you and I, Justice, because as we follow the electrification of the industry, we've seen that things aren't really adding up. If you say you're going to be all electric by 2035, or in some cases 2030, why aren't you securing more battery allocations like right now? But these things take time.
Yeah, I think we both expect timelines to shift.
Yeah.
I don't think either of us expect 2035 to realistically hit. Just for the manufacturing challenges, just for resourcing and everything else. They just don't see that as a realistic timeline.
And I talk trash about charging infrastructure all the time because I rely heavily on Electrify America. Electrify America is not very reliable. However, I do have faith that charging an EV in America will be a lot easier, hassle-free by 2026, 2027, hopefully 2025. But when it comes to what we're talking about here, that's still going to be an issue. Everything else that we're talking about, being able to buy one affordably, that's going to be the biggest issue 5 years from now, not where to charge one. Here's a little news item that really caught my eye, and we'll wrap it up with one more before we call it a day. Samsung SDI. This reminds me of the oil companies. Oil prices through the roof, but the oil companies are making record profits, right?
Yep.
Battery prices through the roof. Battery supply limited, but the battery makers are making record profits. Samsung SDI achieved record high profits in Q3 thanks to robust EV battery sales. Not really a surprise, but it just shows the parallels between, what will eventually, decades from now, be phased out in the oil industry and the emerging battery industry. There are some parallels, such as what we have here. It says that the company's sales during the quarter ending in September were around $3.8 billion, a 56% jump. That's a big increase. Who has partnerships with Samsung SDI automakers? I don't remember. There are several.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of them. Tesla's
Yeah.
one of them.
Yeah.
But I don't know everybody.
Yeah, something that everyone should know is that automakers don't just get their batteries from one place. They take any batteries they can get, basically. I mean, I'm oversimplifying it, but at a time like this where battery shortages are just across the horizon, we're looking at possibly real shortages by 2025. They want batteries where they can find them. And whether that's LG Energy Solutions, Samsung SDI, Panasonic, or Tesla trying to make their own, you get the batteries where you can find them. The last news story I have for today, some good news. We're going to end it on a good note. It is from Hyundai, bringing jobs to Alabama.
Yeah.
One of their largest, I think it is their largest supplier. It's called Hyundai Mobis. Not a very cute name, but Hyundai Mobis. They're building.
Sounds like they make phones.
Yeah, something like that. Or it sounds like a character from The Grinch Who Stole Christmas or something. I don't know. The company says it will build a $205 million EV battery system assembly plant outside of Montgomery, Alabama. It's going to be supplying batteries to Hyundai and Kia. Kia's got a plant over in Georgia. Hyundai's got plants all over the Southeast, including a brand new massive one they're building near Savannah, Georgia. This is good news. It's bringing about 200 jobs to the Montgomery area. That's great.
Awesome. So if you have children under 13,
I'm sorry, 400.
You know,
make your joke, Justice. I know where you're going.
If you have children under 13 and you're in Alabama, look, there's 200 job openings right there.
Now explain your joke so we don't get in trouble.
Yeah, I mean, Hyundai's had 2 different plants now that they have majority stakes in who have been busted for major labor violations by employing young children.
Yeah, so hopefully they get that fixed, because you don't want to be hiring kids to make batteries. No. That's no bueno.
We don't want to be hiring people under 16 to do anything other than mowing your lawn and delivering your newspaper, right?
Yeah, whenever I was 16, I had a neighbor seriously try to pay me. I remember he said $8 an hour to cut his grass. So he was trying to pay me $8 to cut his yard. But I guess Hyundai was offering a better deal than that.
When I was 14, I tried to get a job in an office, and they said I couldn't work there because the job required me to use the Xerox machine, which I couldn't operate as a minor. So instead, I went out and I got a lawnmower with a spinning blade and got money that way.
Wow. Good job. Look at you.
Yeah.
What an entrepreneur. James in the chat just bought an EV6 wind all-wheel drive at MSRP. Congrats on getting it at MSRP.
Nice.
I've had people reaching out to me. Like, someone asked me, can I buy an EV below MSRP? I believe it was Scott. Thanks for reaching out, Scott. Unfortunately, right now, buying it at MSRP is a real win. Right, Justice? Correct me if I'm wrong. You deal with this stuff more than I do.
It is. EVs at MSRP are win. Hybrids, really, honestly, MSRP is probably what you're expecting. You might be able to get a little bit lower. ICE vehicles are what we're seeing right now. We had 3 Toyota ICE vehicles at Invoice this week. Invoice. And it's a Highlander, Camry, and a RAV4. All 3 at Invoice this week. So there's deals to be made on ICE, but EVs, if you can get it at MSRP, you're doing well.
Let's wrap up the show with a on-the-spot question for you, Justice, because I think you'd be the one to help with this. In your opinion, or from what you've seen, what would be 3 examples of EVs that might be available for MSRP if you know where to look? Because I know there are some where it's just almost impossible, like the Ioniq 5.
Yeah, you're not going to get the Ioniq 5. The Bolt, you might be able to if you're in the right areas. I'm trying to think of other, like
the EV6. That was a surprise to me, but
yeah,
the Kia Niro.
That's the first time I've seen. Oh yeah, the Niro, the Kona.
Yeah, Hyundai Kona electric.
Yeah, You can get those not in California, but outside of California, you can get those at MSRP. California, you're going to pay markup. There's not a lot right now.
That's three.
Yeah, there's really that's not a ton.
Yep. Thank you guys for joining us today. We had about 100 live viewers, so that's awesome. We will be back at this new time, 12:45 on Monday. So thank you so much. Have a wonderful weekend. Feel free to join us at the YAA Electric Forum. It's a free forum. It's the YAA community over at joinyaa.com. Justice and I are on there. Whether you're an EV skeptic or an EV nerd like me, we'd love to have you on there.
Okay, can I specify one? We'll clarify one thing because Andrew's right.
Yes, please.
You can get the Lucid at MSRP. You can get a Rivian at MSRP. You can get a Tesla at MSRP. Yes, Sorry, you're right. All the direct to consumers you can get at straight MSRP without markup.
Yeah, we spend so much time
completely
focusing
right
on dealerships that is a good point. Yeah,
that is
the best-selling EVs in America are at MSRP. They're Teslas.
That's right.
Wow, what a way to end the show. Well, you guys have a great weekend. We'll see you guys on Monday. Thank you so much for being here today. See you later, Justice.
Bye.